Hey, welcome to Chaotic Customs in Mulvane, Kansas. I'm Chris Carlson, owner. We have a beautiful 15,000 square foot facility. I have 13 of the most fabulous, talented guys around. We do radical customs, street rods, restorations. We do it from the frame to the interior. We do wild paint jobs. So what we're doing today is we got this 65 Thunderbird that I picked up just to do a quick flip. When we started playing with it, driving it, testing it out, the ladies in the office, they fell in love with this car. So we decided one day that we were going to do a suede paint on it. We did a cool flake, the old school flake, and some panel paint. Now that they've drove it for a while, they want to be like some of the other cool cats out there who are shooting fire. So we put some bellflowers on it that I picked up from Speedway Automotive. Now we're going to put some flamethrowers on it, because they've got to be the hottest in town when we go to our local shows. Hey, I'm Chris Carlson.
Jim Thompson here. We're here to install a flamethrower kit from Speedway Motors.
Hey, when we called Speedway up, we told them what we were doing. They have this cool kit. Comes all in one box, and then you actually buy the coils separate. You can buy these through Speedway to make it real convenient. They're greatly priced. It's just a small block Chevy coil. Even if you have an old one around, you could use it, or I always like new ones that way that they get lots of spark. Hey, inside this box, all this together, they normally sell them for $130 plus some shipping. Then inside this box, they have all the necessary parts to put together a flamethrower kit. You come out with your main module. This module can be mounted under the dash, it can be mounted in the trunk, just somewhere where it's going to stay dry. This is the main controller of the system. You get 2 spark plugs with it. That gives your spark to create the fire in the exhaust system. You also get 2 bunions. You have to weld these into your exhaust tips to mount the plugs. Comes with a push button switch, comes with a toggle switch, some extra wire, and some connectors, some wire connectors for it. Sometimes you may need some more wire depending on the length of your car, what you're doing, how you want to route it. You want to keep some color coding right, but they give you a basis to start with. Now, on this particular kit, when you read the directions, there's 2 sides to the directions. Directions are good in this case, so you don't burn nothing up. On one side, it talks about a distributor cap. The other side is a coil setup. The coil setup is the one that uses this toggle switch. We're using an old style car with a carburetor and a distributor. Don't need this. So, what else do we need with our kit?
Inside the kit, you have everything that's shown here, directions and everything good like that. Other than that, spark plug wires. Anyone probably has spark plug wires laying around their garage, old tune-ups, etc. A neighbor might have one, something like that. So, grab a set of spark plug wires. You can usually cut them to fit how you want. Sometimes part stores, you can have different size, different connectors. That way you can hook to the coil wire itself. Any spark plug wire is going to work as long as you have the right length.
So, now that we know what we have, let's go see what it's going to take to put it on the car. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mount these coils. These are the coils that we bought from Speedway. We also had some just old coil clamps sitting around the shop. We had to reshape them a little bit, but that's all cool. Coil clamp goes around it. We're going to stick these inside the trunk, because inside the trunk is going to be nice and dry. So we're going to take these, we're going to mount them on the side down here in the floor. We'll just put a self-tapping screw into it. It'll hold it in place. We have plenty of room to run our wires. We'll have to drill one more hole in the floor to be able to run that spark plug wire down in there into that exhaust pipe where we want it.
So the next step in installing your flamethrower kit, we're going to mount the coils. Really just make sure that before you drill the holes, make sure there's no fuel lines, gas tanks, or anything underneath. In this step, with the Speedway kit that we have, there's no ground necessary needed for the coils because it's already grounded through the module. That's it.
Okay, now that we've got our coils mounted, we know what we're doing there. We need to put the spark plug and the bunion into the tailpipe. Now, in the instructions, it says anywhere from 6 to 12 inches on the exhaust tip. You always come from the end of the exhaust tip. Man, there's all kinds of theories on this. Shorter, longer, further out, just whatever. I like them at 12. That's how I've always ran them on my cars. So we're going to come from the end of this pipe back 12 inches. We're going to mark a line, drill a hole, and then we're going to weld our bunion in. Now, if you don't have a welder, that doesn't mean that you can't put this system still in. The other way you can do this is you can take your bunion and act as a nut. This will act as your bolt. You'll drill your hole, stick this down through the pipe, screw it in, wedge the pipe in between. It's basically just like a nut. This can come loose. Here at Chaotic Customs, we like to weld these in so we know that they're in and solid. So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take our tape measure. We've got it marked out for 12 inches. We'll come up off that end. We'll just put a line right here. They say not to put these straight up and down on the top and bottom. You can get them out of 45 if you want to hide it more on your car. We're going to go right here because it's easy. So we got to do both sides. Let's get to drilling. Okay, I have 2 cordless drills. One, I'm just going to pop a hole in it, and then we'll use a step bit to get it the rest of the way out there for us. So let's get this thing drilled. So we've got our first hole drilled in. Then we're going to go to a step bit so we can get it out to the right size for that big old bunion that's going to go in there. Okay, we have our spark plug in our bung. We have our hole in our tailpipe. So that's going to slide in there like that. We're going to hold that in place, do a couple of tack welds on it. Then we'll pull the spark plug out so we don't melt it. We'll weld it up all solid and we'll be good to go. So let's get this side done. We're just going to use a wire feed welder. It's quick and easy. All right, so we have that welded up. Then usually what we do is we take a little bit of spray for the exhaust. There's a special exhaust spray that we get from Eastwood that we'll spray on that. It'll keep that from rusting, and we'll put the plug in it. We'll be ready to knock our hole in that thing for the spark plug wire. We'll be good to go. Okay, now that we've got them welded in, we painted them, we mounted the plugs. Now we've got the plug wire. We've cut one end off. This end we're going to be able to reuse. So that's the good thing about having that extra one that you've kept around, you know. Why do I keep these extra wires? Well, we're going to keep them for making flamethrowers. So we're going to shove that up through there. It's right next to the coil. We take this, we just plug that in nice and simple. Make sure that looks good. Give it just a little slack. Let's drop this down and we'll terminate the other end, put it on the coil. We'll be good to go. So where Chris left off, got the spark plug wire through the trunk lid here. We're going to go ahead and put our ends on here, put the terminal in it so we can plug it into the coil. Easiest way of doing this, anything to put on the spark plug wire to make this boot going a little easier, motor oil, WD-40. I like to use silicone paste. It also makes good conductivity. We'll just get this through here. Strip your end where it needs to be stripped at. Always make sure on this that you don't strip the terminal itself. You just do the outside coating. Bend it over. Make sure you have the proper pliers for the proper job. Pretty much that simple right there. Now we got a good connection. Plug it in the coil. We'll do the other side. We'll get prepared to hook up the module. Okay, what we've done is we finished hooking up the coils. We ran the hot wire from the battery all the way back here to mount to the coils. We've also done the module. The module's laying up there in the trunk. What we're gonna do with our module is we're gonna put some double back tape on that, and we're just gonna stick it up on the brace that's in the back behind the seat. That way it just stays where it's supposed to be. So we've ran all of our wires. We've got our button in the dash, we've cut the coil on the main engine, and that way it's all already been fed back here, and then we soldered it together in that main module. So this system really is ready to go. But let's look at what the diagram says first. This is indicating your coil that we put in the trunk. This is your module that we put in the trunk. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with this yellow wire that comes down here. Yellow wire comes out of the module, comes down to the negative side of the coil. You got to have this jump to both coils. Out of your positive side of your coil, you're going to run a line all the way from that new coil all the way back up to the front of your battery to the hot side. It's going to be hot all the time. Then you have your coil or your spark plug wire that goes to your spark plug that's in your tailpipe. If we come from the yellow line, we have a red line. The red wire comes back to the negative side of your ignition coil that's on the car. And what you're going to do is you're going to cut that wire that's on your negative side, and you're going to tap this red one right into it that hooks to it. The extra wire that's hanging loose is going to become wire B, which is your blue wire from your module. So that's just going to interrupt the circuits, what it's going to do. You have a black wire, it's going to come down to your ignition switch. That way it gets its hot feed when the ignition switch is on. And then you have a white wire, which we're indicating in purple, but the white wire comes back to your push button that you're going to mount on the dash. The push button, you have a hot side or a positive side for your white wire, and you have a negative side that's going to go to your chassis ground. Just find any frame ground, it'll work perfect. Okay, so now that we have everything put together and we're ready to go, we've already checked, we make sure that we had spark. All you do is turn the ignition switch on, not running, push your button, have your buddy look up the tailpipe and see the spark coming out. As long as you have spark, you're ready to roll. There's a couple of key things that not everybody tells you about. One, you need the car to run for a little bit. You need those exhaust tips to start getting hot. The hotter they are, the bigger the fire is going to be. So you have a couple of things. You have the heat that's building up inside that pipe and that fire that's coming out of it. Also, the size of pipe makes a difference. The bigger the pipe, the bigger the fire. We're doing these cool 2.5-inch bellflowers on here. You know, it's a style, it's a look. They're going to be a little smaller, more straight coming out, but it's going to be cool anyway. You got to practice, 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 practice. There's a technique to this. Sometimes, what I've been told a lot of guys will do is they'll go take mom's bathroom mirror down and they set it up off to one side so you can see what the tailpipes are doing. You listen to it, you try it a few times, you see how it's coming out. I went down, we live in a small town, so I went down, they have some mirrored panes out on the buildings. One night on a Sunday night, I sat across the street and I just kept doing it until I finally got it and I could see the reflection in the mirrors, and it was pretty cool. So practice, 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 then you can amaze all your friends. Now we're going to fire the car up and we're going to shoot some fire. All right, all we have is this one button here that we're going to use to do it, and it's when you push it, it's going to kill the engine. You're going to have about 2 to 3 seconds. You're going to pump like crazy on the exhaust, and then you're going to just let off and it'll start the car right back up. So the process is just rev the engine up, hit the button, pump, let off the button, she'll keep going. So let's give it a shot. The key is to be able to pump that foot feed like crazy. Bring those RPMs up, hit the button, pump, let off. And now you're shooting fire and you're the coolest cat at the show.